They clocked him at 95 before he even realized the night had teeth. Sean Mercer felt the vibration through the steering wheel first, a low, predatory hum that crept up his arms and lodged behind his eyes. The highway stretched ahead like a ribbon of wet ink, black and shining under sodium lamps. Mile markers flicked past. The radio hissed with static and a country song he didn't recognize. He turned it down, then off. Silence sharpened everything. In the rear-view mirror, headlights flared, dipped, flared again. Too close. Not a single pair. 3, 4. A box forming, subtle as a handshake gone wrong. He'd driven the stretch of I-17 100 times as someone else. Tonight he drove it as himself, or the closest thing to it he had left. Sean eased the accelerator just enough to test. The hum grew into a howl. The speedometer needle climbed. 90, 95. The Crown Vic, unmarked but not invisible, responded like an old dog remembering a trick. His phone buzzed in the cup holder. Unknown caller. He didn't answer. He already knew who it would be, and what they'd say, "You shouldn't have opened that trunk." Or maybe nothing at all. Maybe they let the engine speak. A semi loomed ahead, red taillights like a pair of eyes. Sean signaled, cut left, felt the car drift and settle. The headlights behind him surged closer. One swerved to the shoulder, gravel spraying like sparks. They weren't chasing to scare. They were chasing to end. 3 hours earlier, the desert had been quiet enough to hear your own thoughts argue with each other. Sean stood under the open hatch of the Vic at a rest stop north of Camp Verde. The smell of hot brakes and creosote thick in the air. He'd told himself not to look again. He looked anyway. The trunk was packed with duffels, canvas, scuffed, nondescript. The kind of bags you could find at any sporting goods store. Inside, bundled cash, vacuum-sealed bricks of pills stamped with Crown, a ledger wrapped in oilcloth, and a phone. Old, burned clean, no lock. He hadn't known about the phone. That was the problem. Undercover work was supposed to be about what you didn't know. The gaps were a kind of armor. You let the criminals fill them in, and you learn by listening. Sean had been listening for 2 years inside the Red Lantern Syndicate, a mid-level outfit with a long memory and a short fuse. They ran pills up from Nogales, washed money through shell companies, and buried their mistakes in the desert. Sean's cover was solid. Construction foreman with a taste for cards and a debt problem. He'd bled money convincingly. He'd taken a beating that cracked 2 ribs and rearranged a smile. He'd watched men disappear and learned not to ask questions. But the phone, he thumbed it awake. One message, and signed, Mercer. 11:45 p.m., I-17 mile 248. Come alone. The time stamp was yesterday. Sean felt the desert lean in. He closed the trunk, his pulse loud enough to be a sound. He hadn't told his handler he'd stopped. He hadn't told anyone about the ledger either. The ledger was insurance, sure, but it was also bait, the kind that hooks both ways. He got back in the car, started the engine, and pointed north. Now the chase unfolded like a bad dream with good physics. A black Tahoe muscled up on his left, grill wide and hungry. He glimpsed the driver, shaved head, eyes flat as coins. Another SUV pressed close behind, headlights kissing his bumper. A sedan hung back, patient, the kind of patience that comes from having time in numbers. Sean took the exit ramp without signaling. Tires screamed. The Tahoe overshot, clipped a reflector, fishtailed, recovered. The road narrowed into a Tulane County stretch that cut through juniper and scrub. He needed help. He thought of the state troopers who ran radar on this road, the sleepy stations, the coffee rings. He thought of his handler, Ellen Price, with her soft voice and sharper eyes. He thought of the ledger, the phone, the way the message knew his name. His phone buzzed again. This time a number. He answered. "Sean," Ellen said. No greeting. No preamble. "You seeing this?" he asked, breath tight. "I told you to leave the car," she said. "I told you to wait." "They found out," he said. "They know I'm a cop." A pause. Too long. "Who told you that?" "You did," he said, and surprised himself with the certainty. "Or someone close enough to borrow your voice." Headlights flared. The Tahoe rammed his rear quarter. The Vic lurched. Sean corrected, felt the back end step out, then snapped back. "Listen to me," Ellen said. "You need to get to mile 261. There's a pullout. A unit will meet you." "What unit?" Another pause. "Sean." The line went dead. Sean remembered the first time he met Marco Bellini, the Lantern's de facto boss. It was in the back room of a steakhouse with mirrors on the walls and red leather booths. Bellini had a grandfather's hands and a killer's eyes. He'd cut Sean's steak for him without asking. "People lie," Bellini had said, smiling, "but engines don't. You treat them right, they tell you everything." Bellini had liked cars. He liked speed. He liked loyalty more. Sean had been loyal, until he wasn't. The road curved hard right. Sean braked late, downshifted, felt the Vic squat. The sedan swung wide, clipped a mailbox, spark skittering. The Tahoe stayed glued. Ahead, a sheriff's cruiser sat angled on the shoulder, lights off. Sean flashed his brights. The cruiser didn't move. As he blew past, he saw the deputy's door open. A man stepped out, not a deputy. Leather jacket, gun in hand. The county road dead-ended at a cattle gate. Sean swore, yanked the wheel, plowed to the gate in a burst of wire and wood. The Vic bucked. The tires found dirt. The desert opened up, a washboard of ruts and rocks. The Tahoe followed, suspension screaming. Dust swallowed the world. Sean laughed then, a short, broken sound. It wasn't joy. It was a release of a plan collapsing. He drove blind, following the memory of a line he'd traced on maps for 2 years. The wash dipped, rose. He caught air, landed hard, felt something give under the hood. The engine stuttered. "Come on," he whispered. The sedan emerged from the dust on his right. Window down. A muzzle flashed. Glass exploded across the passenger seat. Sean ducked, tasted copper. He turned toward the mountains. When Vic finally died, it did so quietly, as if embarrassed. Sean coasted to a stop in a stand of juniper. He killed the lights. Silence rushed in, thick and total. He grabbed the ledger and the phone, shoved them into his jacket, and ran. Footfalls pounded behind him. Shouts in Italian, and English braided together. A beam cut through the trees. Sean ran until his lungs burned, until the desert smell changed from dust to cold stone. He slid down into a ravine and pressed himself into the shadow of a boulder. He waited. The voices came closer, then spread out. A dog barked once, eager. Sean took the phone from his pocket, thumbed it awake. No signal. He thought of his mother, who still called on Sundays and pretended not to hear the strain in his voice. He thought of Ellen, of the way she'd always known when he was lying and let him do it anyway. He thought of Bellini's hands. Steady on the knife. A flashlight beam swept past. Sean moved. He came up behind the man holding the light, wrapped an arm around his neck, pulled tight. The man thrashed, then sagged. Sean eased him down, took the gun. 2 more shapes burst from the brush. Sean fired. The night shattered. The gunfight was brief and brutal. Muzzle flashes punched holes in the dark. Sean felt a round tear through his jacket, burn along his ribs. He fell, rolled, came up behind a rock, gasping. Silence again. Then footsteps retreating. They were regrouping, calling it in. Sean crawled deeper into the ravine, hands slick, mind racing. He needed leverage. He needed a miracle. The phone vibrated. 1 bar of service blinked into existence. A text arrived. "You should have stayed dead." It was from Ellen's number. Sean's chest went hollow. He typed back with shaking thumbs. "Why?" The reply came fast. "Because someone always has to pay." The truth, when it came, was small and ugly. Ellen hadn't sold him out. Not exactly. She'd been sold first. Years ago, before Sean, before the Lanterns, Ellen had made a call she shouldn't have. She protected a source who turned out to be poison. A child died. The file was buried. The people who buried it kept the shovel. Bellini knew. He'd known for months. He'd fed her just enough rope. The ledger in the trunk wasn't insurance against the Lanterns. It was insurance against her. Sean laughed again, Silently this time. The desert didn't care who was dirty. It only cared who was alive. Headlights appeared at the rim of the ravine. Sean stood. He walked out into the open with his hands up, the ledger tucked against his ribs like a second heart. Bellini stepped forward, immaculate even now. The dog strained at its leash. "You ran well," Bellini said. "I always liked that about you." Sean met his eyes. "You don't know everything." Bellini smiled. "I know enough." A shot cracked. Bellini staggered, surprised. From the ridge, a second set of lights flared, blue and red this time, undeniable. Sirens tore the night open. Chaos erupted. Men scattered. The dog broke free. Sean dropped, rolled, fell hands on him. Firm, practiced. "Police!" someone shouted. Sean let go of the ledger. Dawn found the desert scrubbed clean, as if nothing had happened. Bellini survived. So did Ellen. So did the story in pieces. The official report called it a multi-agency takedown triggered by an anonymous tip. The chase was footnoted. Sean was listed as a confidential asset who assisted under extreme duress. He woke in a hospital bed with tubes in his arms and a view of the mountains. Ellen sat beside him, eyes red, hands folded. "I'm sorry," she said. Sean nodded. He believed her. It didn't matter. Weeks later, after the indictments and the funerals, Sean drove the same stretch of I-17 in a borrowed car. He kept it at 70. At mile 248, he pulled over and killed the engine. The desert hummed. The sun dipped. He left the ledger buried under a cairn of stones. The phone smashed and scattered. Some stories don't end. They just slow down enough to let you step out. Sean didn't remember collapsing. Only the sound of gravel crunching beneath boots that weren't his and the smell of antiseptic arriving too late. When consciousness returned, it came in fragments. White light, a monitor's steady beep, a dull ache that felt older than his body. The hospital room was quiet except for the machines. Mountains framed the window, distant and indifferent. Sean blinked, tested his hands. They trembled. Ellen was asleep in the chair beside him, jacket still on, head tilted forward like a confession she hadn't finished making. For a long time, Sean watched her breathe. The doctors said he was lucky. Bullet grazes, internal bruising, cracked ribs, concussion, no spinal damage, no permanent loss. Luck was a word people used when they didn't want to say math. Agents came in pairs. Questions were asked gently, then not so gently. Sean answered what he could. When he could, he learned that 3 Lantern soldiers were dead, 2 arrested, and Marco Bellini was in ICU under armed guard. The ledger had detonated exactly the way Bellini had feared. Shell companies unraveled. Politicians resigned. A judge took early retirement. The Red Lantern Syndicate fractured overnight, its lieutenants turning on one another like rats smelling fire. Sean watched it all from a bed with starched sheets and a plastic bracelet around his wrist. He fell hollow. Ellen finally spoke on the 3rd day. "They gave me a choice," she said. "Years ago. I didn't even know it was a choice at the time." Sean stared at the ceiling. "They said protect the case or protect the kid. I thought I could do both." Her voice broke. "I was wrong." Sean turned his head, looked at her. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because then you would have walked," she said. "And I needed you inside." Sean closed his eyes. "You needed the case." Ellen didn't argue. Weeks passed. Sean learned to walk without wincing, to sleep without jerking awake at imagined engines. Therapy sessions blurred together. Faces, feelings, forms. He was offered commendations he declined. A desk job he ignored. The badge felt heavier than it ever had. At night, he dreamed of headlights. Bellini took a plea. The man who once ruled rooms with a smile now spoke softly into microphones, hands folded, eyes down. He named names. He traced routes. He explained systems like a professor dissecting a failed experiment. When asked about Sean Mercer, he smiled. "He was very good," Bellini said. "Almost too good." The desert changed color as summer bled into fall. Sean returned to I-17 alone, this time in daylight. The road looked smaller, without fear stretching it. At mile 248, he stopped. He stepped out, wind tugging at his jacket, and listened to the highway hum. Cars passed. Lives moved on. Sean crouched, moved stones aside, checked the cairn. The ledger was still there, wrapped, waiting. He left it untouched. Some truths didn't need another witness. Sean walked back to the car, slower now, deliberate. He drove south, not running, just going home. Final expansion, completed version. Sean Mercer never returned to undercover work. The doctors called it a medical decision. Internal Affairs called it prudent. Sean called it survival. The Lantern case became a benchmark. Taught in training rooms, dissected in seminars, cited in memos about operational risk and handler exposure. Sean's name appeared in footnotes, redacted in places, misspelled in others. That suited him. He moved to a smaller place north of Flagstaff, where the nights were colder and the roads were quiet. He found work inspecting construction sites, the kind of job where people nodded but didn't ask much. Sometimes, late at night, he'd drive. Not fast. Never fast. He learned the feel of 70 miles per hour, the way some men learn prayer. Ellen retired quietly the following spring. No ceremony. No charges. The system preferred unresolved endings. They never spoke again. Sean kept one souvenir, a scar along his ribs, pale and uneven, a reminder written into flesh. The desert kept the rest. On clear nights, when engines whispered along I-17 and headlights bent over the hills, Sean would pause, breathe, and let the road pass without him. Because some chases don't end when the sirens stop. They end when you finally choose not to run.